Hi, everyone. Our group is going to be arguing that we should take drastic action as a nation to slow the effects of climate change. And now we're going to explain exactly what climate change is.
So, according to NASA, climate change is a long-term change in the average weather patterns that have to come define Earth's local, regional, and global climates.
And global warming is a long-term heating of Earth's climate system observed since pre-industrial period due to human activity, primary fossil fuel burning, which increases heat trapping greenhouse gases levels in Earth's atmosphere.
Okay, so basically to summarize, global warming is an aspect of climate change. Hence, global warming is climate change, but climate change is not necessarily always exclusively global warming.
We aren't going to bother arguing whether or not global warming or climate change are real. Though the U.S. has a long-standing romance with climate change denial, climate change is undeniable reality, and the facts are there if you choose to acknowledge them. Humans are directly responsible for climate change. There's no way around it, and it's paramount that we take action before it's too late.
So basically what our group is arguing is that the United States is both economically, diplomatically, and morally obligated to accelerate its response to climate change.
Responsibility as a superpower. According to World Bank, the United States is leading in production 16.5 metric tons of CO2. Meanwhile, China, the second highest, only produced 7.54 metric tons. We cannot ethically turn a blind eye as a nation that has a massive global environmental footprint. As a country that plays such a tremendous role in the climate of our planet, we can hold ethical responsibility for the consequences of our actions and for global environment's health in general. The United States is responsible for safeguarding the health of its people, and climate change threatens us all. According to World Health Organization, air quality in LA is so poor that it increases COVID-19 death risk.
Also, in general, in a more practical sense, regarding economic interests, it's actually better for us as a nation to respond to climate change. Climate change poses a looming threat to coastal cities, threatening extreme economic losses. Flooding and severe weather due to rising sea levels and the hurricanes promoted by climate change threatens billions and trillions of lives. It would be extremely expensive to repair damages and provide disaster relief. Climatologists have also 2:30 is way too late for this. Climatologists have also predicted that New Orleans alone could have to spend up to $1.8 billion in flood relief in the event of another hurricane. Climate change also poses a massive threat to the economies of these cities and the economy of the nation itself, threatening environmentally dependent industries like seafood and agriculture. In Louisiana alone, wetland degradation has a severe impact on the seafood industry. Many key species depend on these marshes both as a habitat and a nursery for their young. So the disruption of these wetlands has a direct impact on the health of our economy. Shifts in weather patterns spurred by climate change have a massive impact on the U.S. agriculture industry as a whole. Extreme rainfall events have increased 37% in the Midwest since the 1950s, and in 2019, the region has experienced above normal amounts of rain and snowmelt that have caused historic flooding. Many fields have washed away and livestock have drowned. Nebraska alone lost 440 million worth of cattle, and as of last March alone, Iowa has suffered $1.6 billion in losses. It's also in our best interest to provide economic opportunities to not only advertising companies, but also scientists studying the changes in climate and engineers working on newer, safer technology. Furthermore, our government is in the unique position of having considerable influence over the big industries that have the biggest environmental footprints and has regulated them to great effect in the past. The implementation of CAFE standard is an excellent example of this. First enacted by Congress in 1975, they require vehicle manufacturers to comply with the gas mileage or fuel economy standards set by Department of Transportation, or to pay extra, motivating companies to create more fuel-efficient vehicles. Another fantastic example would be the response to the ozone layer crisis. After becoming the worst kind of international sensation, the discovery that chlorofluorocarbons from popular products such as aerosols and refrigerants galvanized the public and prompted regulations of chemical industries and the passage of the Montreal Protocol in 1989. This not only provided that such regulations could be passed, but, but also that they could be implemented to great effect, with the ozone layer ultimately showing significant signs of recovery.
Thirdly, the United States has a diplomatic responsibility to take action against climate change. Many of the world's leading powers have taken significant action against climate change, and the United States' reputation is tarnished by its lack of action. The Climate Change Performance Index evaluates and compares the climate protection performance of more than 58 countries, with countries such as the UK, Morocco, Sweden, and India frontlining efforts to combat climate change. The US, however, ranks last by a considerable margin, stacking up embarrassingly to other nations. The Kyoto Protocol, for instance, is an international government agreement that aimed to reduce carbon dioxide emissions and the presence of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. A major symbol of international cooperation and action against climate change, the Kyoto Protocol presented a formal international stand against climate change, and the US's refusal to ratify its commitment to it and eventual withdrawal from the agreement represented a rejection of that stand and a clear preference for domestic priorities, reflecting poorly on us diplomatically as a nation. Similarly, the US's withdrawal from the Paris Accords in 2017 illustrates a disregard for the international consensus that climate change must be combated, further tarnishing our reputation in the international community. To reiterate, as a nation with the largest cumulative CO2 emissions since 1750, we have an obligation as a nation to take responsibility for our impact. In refusing to act against climate change, we put our international reputation at stake, and after all, our environmental footprint itself has an international impact.
In conclusion, our group believes that global warming is an issue and it is the duty of the countries such as the United States to actually act and prevent any future problems from occurring.
NASA.